No, sound guy. No, no, no. Oh, hey, folks. We're having a little bit of an internal meeting here at Dudeco Industries, and it seems that sound guy found possibly the most annoying freaking music ever. It's like Disney on acid. As you're covered in honey and red and black ants are fighting on your genitals. That's about as nice as I can express it. Okay. Um, so where are we right now currently with the podcast channel? Well, I'm looking at about another 20 plus days, 25 or 24 days left on the another 30-day Facebook timeout because I posted something that was snarky to somebody who was being snarky to me. And in return, I proceeded to give them what for. So anyway, where are we right now? Well, I have like so many projects coming down the pike. It is just ridiculous. And every time I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get this one done. And I'm like, oh, and it's like bull in a china shop, finding stuff on the interwebs. And, I just look at things and I start picking up too much stuff. And that's probably half my problem right now is I don't like to sell stuff that I currently have in my collection. No, sound guy. No, I'm not selling stuff in my collection, okay? I have way too much stuff. I think when I finally, kick off and Mrs. Dude is dealing with my pile of excess, she's probably not going to be the happiest person in the world. But I was playing with a couple things. I mean, I've been scrounging around on the internet, and of all things, eBay. eBay is like the worst thing ever for me. And I found this, which is a Leatherwood style AR-15 carry handle scope mount carrying a Japanese, mind you, 3x9x32. So not the biggest objective, but it's an easy fit because it's a very small bell end on this guy. Excuse me, there are Britons and Aussies. It's a very small bell end on the objective side. Druthers, it is missing one of the turret caps, but not a deal breaker. The cool part about it is this is actually probably going to be a little hard to depict, but hopefully this might show. You can look at this now and it says Fed Ord. So in actuality, it says Fed Ord Del Monte or El Monte, California. Not Del Monte, that's the canned stuff. But anyway, so I found this guy and I'm like, oh, that is so cool. Because I remember Fed Ord being one of those things kind of going away back in the 80s, and it just kind of faded away. It's like one of those things like Inner Arms. It's like really kind of cool, really cool and notable. Bannerman, I think the guy's name was Bill Bannerman or something like that. But it's like one of these old school gun guys that basically dealt with like surplus firearms and all kinds of really cool stuff. But the Leatherwood style scope mount, it's kind of overboard for an AR-15. I mean, it's got this massive, abutment for here that racks into the front of the receiver, on the carry handle. And, it's kind of really overbuilt. There is a couple of design aspects that I think are kind of but just for the collectability side of it, I thought it was really cool. Then this one popped up. Yeah, another one. So I got two. I mean, I'm not lying here. And this one being a very oddball critter. And as a matter of fact, it's actually going to be really, really hard to read the eyepiece because it got painted. But this is another Fed Ord El Monte scope mount. You can see this one's actually seen a little bit more use because, the anodizing paint, call it what you will, has been worn off the aluminum. The scope rings are actually Weaver-style scope rings. They're really, really kind of low. I mean, like the variable adjustments here will like barely clear, and I mean like RCH of clearance, like scant clearance. Really not good for like mounting on a firearm. But this one, of course, being I believe another 3x9, might be a 3x7, but it is a very oddball critter. It's still a Japanese scope. But this was back when Japan was really trying to get a foothold on things. Of all things, this scope was actually sold through Kmart. Yes, Kmart actually had notoriety for selling firearms, firearm accessories, back in the 60s and 70s. Obviously, they weren't part of Sears yet. They were their own thing, and they had their own way of doing stuff in, like, rural areas. Obviously, there was not a Walmart back then, and sometimes and you would have occasion to go to the Kmart to buy your stuff. Now, I would really need to, and I'm probably going to have to cheat on this one because, unfortunately, age being what it is, the small font sucks. So this guy is a All Pro. So All Pro, and it is a 3 by, and the adjustment is really kind of like, everything is like really, really snug. Like the O-rings need some lube, but it is also a 3 by 9 by 32. Now, the thing about it is this thing cranked down on 3 power is like as sharp and clean and pretty and just, I mean, it's not as coated. The lenses are not as coated as modern optics. But I got to tell you what, the sight picture on this thing is like absolutely on 3 power, absolutely dead sharp. And you crank it up to 9 power and you're looking at a distance and it's fairly clear. Is it as good as like modern coated optics? No, not really. As a matter of fact, it actually even takes a step back to the Tasco because the Tasco actually ran better glass. But for a collectability standpoint, I could bolt these things on my, period era 60s/70s/ going into 80s recreation rifle builds, SP1 Colt style firearms and the like and stuff like that. And you would get things that would look not too terribly out of place. But I do have an addiction, and I made that very well known. It's one of those things, unfortunately, I really just can't help myself. And I probably spent way entirely too much money on this, but I acquired yet another one of the 3 by 9 by 40 rubber armored Tascos that came on the Colt Delta H bar. And I actually have recreated a build. I actually do have in my collection a Colt lower receiver, Colt upper receiver, all the proper components. As a matter of fact, I even found the proper rifle sling with the Colt horsey on it to say that I have the full package now. I have the magazines, I got the owner's manual. So basically, I have a full recreation of the Colt Delta H bar. Those tend to run out. The only thing I really, really, truly need, this would be like, sun and the moon entirely, would be to find the stainless steel box that it all came in, the carrying case. And it's a hard beast to find. And the ones that I have found, they're stratospheric. Oh, this is such a collectible piece. You can't really get these things anywhere. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, because most people don't really use welded aluminum rifle cases anymore. Everybody uses black polymer, or they use the Zytel stuff, the big honking Pelican cases with the wheels on them, and basically the FAA proof rifle cases that they could throw down the conveyor belt and it's going to bounce and leave dents on everything that it hits because it's basically rock solid. Pretty much the same thing that the U.S. military uses for shipping their firearms when they transport their troops. Now, the thing about it is trying to acquire that last piece. It's kind of in the ethers. I'd like to have it, in my heart of hearts, if I was financially way, way, way more capable. Of course, I wouldn't be in my current state, literally the state of which I reside, and I would have just a ridiculously phenomenal firearms collection. That said, I've been playing around with 19, and it's kind of one of those funny things. The 2 KE armed lowers that I currently have, one serial number ends in 13, one serial number ends in 19. This, to me, I think is the nicer of the two. I mean, they both are serviceable. They're both not, going to be like, oh, you put these things on and it's just going to be like those, oh, wow, you hear like the orchestral, it's not like that at all. It is a working piece. It is molded polymer. It is not going to be the prettiest thing on the planet, but it's going to be very, very, very serviceable. And that's one of the things I really truly like about it is the fact that the stock doesn't ring like a cheap stock. I mean, yes, it obviously has hollows in there, because it does have the place for the buffer spring and all the rest of that fun stuff. And I do need to get started on that build. Only downside is currently I have been kicking my own butt to try to hit the choicest times to drive and make the most profit, because obviously I got a wrench on my car. Obviously I have to get it ready for, another state inspection, because that's the way in the state of Maryland it works. Is every year you need to obtain a state inspection to do Uber and Lyft. Well, I got about a 14-day countdown before that, inspection expires. So, obviously parts and stuff that I need to put on the car. I mean, you see the 2 big boxes behind me that say Honda on it. Well, that's the new struts. The tires are coming from, of all places, I bought the tires through Walmart online. And the funniest damn thing is I get like, a bunch of emails and I'm like, what in the world is this? Well, in their infinite wisdom, Walmart second sold. Obviously, the company that did sell me the tires is a place called Online Tires, but I went through Walmart to obtain it. Every single tire has its own shipping label. They didn't do just, this is 4 tires, 1 shipping label. There's literally 4 shipping labels for 4 tires that are going to be coming to my house. And the thing about it is what is it, like 245 60 R18 SUV tires. And the set that I bought the car with, I kind of like. So I'm just replacing them. They're a set of Pirellis, and they stick. I mean, they really stick. That thing actually sticks good enough that it's rare I hook a turn where the tires are squealing even the slightest. I would tell you for a fact, Pirellis are good rubber. Now, the thing about it is, of course, wear and tear, beating the things up on, Baltimore City streets. Obviously, you're driving around, they're wearing out. Well, I've got in excess of like 60,000 miles of a set of tires that were used when I bought the car. So I'm not complaining, man. And I really don't beat on my tires. I hook turns fairly nicely, especially when I have passengers on board. It's not like I'm driving the thing like Johnny Hot Rod, and I'm squealing around every single corner, because that's not how you make money. You're just wearing stuff out. But anyway, so like I said, basically all the major componentry I pretty much have for the what would do build. And we'll be going on with that one and moving out smartly and all the rest of that stuff. If I could just stop buying stuff online and giving myself new projects. Like I said, I got 13 and 19 hanging out and waiting to do something. I mean, I do have enough parts. I mean, obviously I went back and I got some more seconds as a just in case. I mean, obviously, you wish to go out and have parts. So, I went out and got myself, another AR lower parts. That's probably going to go in 13. 19 is going to be the what would Stoner do build guy. Obviously, you do need an oops kit. Always have an oops kit, because AR-15s are absolutely infamous for your going, okay, this should be fitting like such, and doink. Oh, crap. Where'd it go? And I have done that, and it is the most annoying thing on the planet when you've had like the doink, whatever little booger, just go flying for the ethers and go, you know what? It's time to go into hyperspace. And it's gone. That's just the way life works sometimes. So you need to have spares, you need to have additional parts, and just in cases, especially with an AR-15. There's a bunch of little fiddly bits that pop out really easy, and once they're lost, they're annoying to replace because you got to go and get them. Well, I have many multiples, but you know what? Sometimes it's better to have many multiples. So I went out to my local gun store, didn't buy any guns or ammo. I mean, obviously, those guys are really hurting right now for stock. So I was like, you know what? Let me eyeball the place real quick. And of course, I know the owner. I know the owner's grandson. He's on staff there. So I'm hanging out shooting the breeze with those guys. And it came to the point where it was like, okay, I probably want to do a good turn to these guys, and I want to contribute to the cause. So I went to the back room and I was like, yeah, these parts are a little more expensive than I normally would spend for them. But I'm helping keep the lights on. So I will buy some stuff. That's probably about $20 too much more than I normally would spend for these items. But the guy has the stuff in stock. There's no issue with obtaining it. There is no background checks for basic componentry. You throw down the credit card and that's the thing, is buying stuff that you need that's quality, you only cry once. Buying crap that sucks, you cry every single time you need to replace it. Case in point, none of these scopes are going to be probably frontline oriented. They're going to be fun toy items that pretty much I just go and play with. This guy is so pretty. I might actually even replace the one that's currently on my Delta H-Bar clone. It is pretty. It's got like one little tiny scuff in like the adjustment ring here, where obviously it bumped against something in a safe or something. But that's standard good old wear and tear. That's pretty much just not ripped up, shredded, and destroyed items. It's things that you're going to have by simple, basic entropy. Curious Entertainment says, America, when it was still great, wish I could have seen it. Dude, yeah, man, if I had a time machine, trust me, if I had a time machine, the very first thing I would be doing is going back to about 1973, 1974 and going, hey, those Hemi cars you got there that really aren't moving, I got about $30,000 here. how many of those will you sell me? And they're just looking at this parking lot of Daytona Superbirds going, oh, nobody's buying these things. These things are completely impractical. As a matter of fact, we're taking off the nose cones and the tails and just selling them as normal Chargers, and they're really not moving. How many do you want? It's like, I'll take what you have for this amount of money, and potentially I might buy them all. And the guy's going to go, what are you doing that for? It's like, well, it's kind of like a spares parts thing. And I know going down the road, there's going to be guys that probably want parts for these things. And then I'm going to take those cars and I'm going to find a warehouse and I'm going to put them in the warehouse. I'm going to make sure they're off the ground. All the tires are literally off the ground. And I'm going to make sure those cars are parked as charitably as I can park it. And I'm going to come back 40 years later and every single one of those cars is going to be worth about $1.2 million. That'd be the first thing I'd do. The second thing I would do and go, hey guys, let me show you some new technology. And I would pop them a smartphone and see what they did next. You got to remember too how much technology has improved over the years. I mean, from the 1970s to current, are just a very simple thing about storage medium. I mean, you're talking like an SD card with like a 1 T capacity. I mean, I know they're still like $500-$600, but that would be completely unapproachable back years ago. You're talking like a few hundred, megabytes was like a huge storage facility. Most time people would do the storage stuff. It would usually wind up being on reel tapes. Curious Entertainment says, if I had a time machine, I'd go back to 1934 and stop the NFA. Dude, if I had a time machine, I would probably stop those guys from overvaluing everything and giving us the Great Depression because it was avoidable. Then I would probably make sure FDR had a horrible accident, falling down a stairwell or something. And then, of course, Hitler wound up as an abortion. But of this, I shall digress. But yeah, there's many things I would go back in time and readjust the radio dial. But yeah, trust me, if there was a lot of things I could have done back in my youth, I definitely would have bought some Apple stock. I definitely would have bought some, majorly Apple and Microsoft and all those other cutting edge companies that are now like so completely overvalued. It's just beyond reproach to even look at them. I mean, it's ridiculous. You look at like even Amazon, it started out as like $140. Now it's like $3,200 a share. It's absolutely insane. And I'm really not a stock market person. I mean, I just look at the stock market most times and it's like, yeah, it's grossly overvalued. It's a lottery game and you got to be an inside person to really make it work. And really what it is it's pretty much the slot machine for suckers to throw the cash and the rich guys to go, thank you. You're so stupid. You gave us money. You're a fool. So anyway, in that regard, I mean, I do have all these projects lined up and I really, truly intend to do something with them. It's just right now I'm kicking my own ass to try to basically keep the highest possible earnings, doing the Uber and Lyft thing so I can pay down whatever debts that I accrue. And it's not cheap. It really isn't cheap sometimes running around and giving people, rides from A to B. Now, there's a couple things I can do to defray that expenditure. If I have my druthers, I do not sit in Baltimore City, and I don't drive around in Baltimore City. As a matter of fact, I had another day this week where it kept throwing me like 3 and 5 minute runs, and then the runs were like, 12 and 14 minutes away. It's like, no, stop, go away. I can refuse runs. It's just my acceptance rate drops, and I really don't like my acceptance rate to drop. There's a couple of things you got to really take into account when you're doing any kind of rideshare services is you really have to be very cognizant of, there's a couple major factors. You have to accept a certain amount of rides. You can't refuse a certain number of rides. You can't cancel a certain number of rides. Obviously, you have to provide good service. And obviously, you can't shake people around from one side of your car, driving around like a NASCAR guy, because that's just not good juju. You can't do that to people. Excuse me 1 second here. Sneeze coming on, but it's not doing it. 5 shots R6. Appreciate you coming by today, dude. Of course, Curious Entertainment. Appreciate you hanging out. And of course, I see some other people that are just, observers. If you do wish to come into the chat room and make your points known, that's perfectly fine. If you wish to observe, that's perfectly fine as well. I do my weekly podcast on 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. So if you guys want to see that, that's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's my usual go-to of Dude After Dark. And this is just me riffing on you. I was just kind of sitting around going, okay, Mrs. Dude is out doing something. Everybody's out of the house. I'm by myself, and I got crap to play with. So I'll just, start spewing. North of the border, 905. Appreciate you coming by, dude. Let's see. I would assume that you're one of my resident Canuckastani guys. Randall Hill. Appreciate you coming by, dude. So yeah, I mean, usually I don't usually do like a live cast going into a weekend. It's just, I just get bored. It's like, okay, I really haven't posted a lot of videos lately. I really haven't done a lot of, what would do build items. So I kind of probably needed to feel the need to, do some stuff. So I'm doing some stuff here, carrying on and doing my usual just babble. And that's the other thing too, is also it was always funny when I was working with Rich the Bridge Hunter from aroundthecabin.com. It would be the funniest thing. It's like, okay, I guess we'll do some show prep. What's today's show about? And I'm like, usual. He's like, okay, and he's almost like, all right, fine, whatever. You're just gonna go, and I'll just follow along somehow. So that's how that one works. Randall Hill says he's from Birmingham, Alabama. I like Alabama. I've never been there, but I like the idea of red tide and all that good stuff. Or crimson tide. Sorry, you guys are a good bunch of eggs. I mean, it's the state you don't. Okay, that's how you define a state that doesn't have a lot of stupid drama and whatnot. You don't hear a whole heck of a lot about it. It's because they're not problem children. They're just not. Let's see. Randall Hill says, swap the pistol grip off a Turkish semi-shotgun to a Remington 870 stock without a pistol grip. Oh, that's cool, man. I mean, that's the other thing, too, is there's a lot of universality. And, of course, there's always the case of it's amazing what happens when you go into your workshop and you can make the square peg fit into the round hole with enough persuasion. So yeah, man, that's always cool. And that's one of the nice things too, is also the Remington stuff is like so ubiquitous, so generic. I mean, 870s, 1100s, 1187s, they're all really, really similar. I mean, the parts are everywhere. So that's one of the coolest things, of course, is obviously stuff fits stuff. I mean, especially when you start talking like AR-15. I mean, you click 2 pins and you can take that thing from 22 long rifle all the way out to 50 caliber BMG. Also, I think some crazy A made a 12 gauge bolt action upper for the AR-15. Basically, just you run the bolt and it basically kicks out the shell and you drop another shell in there, or there's a side magazine or something, and crazy stuff for it. I mean, it's just really hilarious, because the dirty little secret is most people don't realize a 50 BMG will actually drop into the chamber and barrel of a 12 gauge. And if you're crazy enough, it might actually also fire. Iraqi veteran 8888 literally was, hey, let's see if this will work. And so they take the 50 caliber, and of course the firing pin just kind of goes, boop, and it didn't fire. So they're like, okay, let's wrap some tape around the cartridge so it keeps headspace. And then they said, okay, let's give it a try. But they weren't stupid enough to go, let's do it like this. No, they tied it off to something, and they had a string leading off, and they yanked the string, and of course, it fired. And the funniest damn thing is, most people really don't understand how a gun works. If you don't have something to help the cartridge build pressure, it pretty much just farts out most of the powder, and the powder's not going to be burnt. And they literally were shooting like the 5-gallon buckets that you could buy at Home Depot. And they got the bucket. They're like, oh, look, the bullet stopped after like the 3rd bucket. And it's like the buckets were just full of unburnt powder. So pretty much all they were really doing was almost just like throwing the bullet. I mean, it really was not that big a velocity, but it's just the fact it's a 660 grain bullet. Oh, my newest cat was messing with me. Let's see. Looking in the room here, autocorrect is so, yeah, dude, yeah. Randall Hill, I'm not going to try that with a 50 BMG. Makes me envision Kentucky ballistics. Well, it's already been said. Mark Serbu has already stated what happened. And what Kentucky Ballistics did was he got a hold of some mongrel. I'm just simply going to say it. He got a hold of some mongrel-ass bastard 50 BMG, and nobody knows what the load data is on that ammo. And the thing about it is if you look at that ammo compared to the standard Sabot, it doesn't even look right. So the potential estimation that Mark Serbu has is the chamber pressure, the standard chamber pressure of a 50 BMG is roughly on par with like a 308. It's about 58,000 to 62,000 copper units of pressure. Not a small amount of pressure, but for the amount of threads that he has on the breech cap that screws on there and the secondary functions that he built into it just in case of failure, there's an estimate that the chamber pressure was north of 85,000 PSI, not copper units, PSI. Now, in copper units, I'd probably be closer to 90,000 copper units of pressure. Now, to put that in perspective, to handle something like that, you would probably need to have like an artillery breech sliding down and locking in place, not a piece of metal screwing out another piece of metal. And Mark Serbu has already said, my stuff is built with like a 20, if not a 30% safety margin. So he cleared that safety margin with ease and pushed it beyond that, because normally the maximum amount of pressure that you would ever put through that thing as a proof round would probably be about 75 to 78,000 copper units of pressure. So about another 15 to 20%. And the estimation is it was north of 85,000. So it would have blown. I mean, it would have blown. As a matter of fact, firing that thing, even in a Barrett, you would have done some serious damage to something. If not, you would have just locked the gun up and it would have just tied up the action so completely. And you would have been fighting with it to try to get the bolt open. And you would have been using a chamber rod to bang out the old brass. If not, the brass wouldn't have just separated. So it was an unsafe situation. Even in like a big bolt gun with like massive locking surfaces, you're going way beyond the brass able to hang with that. So it was a serious Magnum plus load, if not plus P plus going into a 50 BMG, which is not a weak cartridge to begin with. I mean, it'll push about a 660 grain bullet at about 27 to 2,800 feet per second. So really close to 30-06 ballistics, but just with like a bullet that weighs 4 times as much. Let's see. Scroll in the chat room here. The gun community will never forget Kentucky's accident. Well, Curious Entertainment, let's not forget about Tex Grebner. Holy blank, I just shot myself. And that was the other thing too, is somebody put out a video on YouTube. I don't even remember the channel, but it was like, don't go full Grebner. And it's like, he didn't go full Grebner. He threw a cartridge into a chamber and tried to fire a bolt, pretty much almost a bolt action. It pretty much is a single shot, really, if you want to get down to it. And he was shooting safely. He wasn't doing like, the Tex Grebner, okay, arm out like this. And that was the other thing too, is I've talked to guys who are like cops and they're like, what kind of a tactical move is that? You're like this, or I'm sorry, he was like this, like elbow, 45 degrees, trying to do a fast draw. And he was trying to do a fast draw with the safety off on a 1911. Now, the way 1911 works is as soon as you squeeze the grip safety and you pull the trigger, the gun's firing. If you pull the trigger and you're not pulling the grip safety, like trying to get out of the holster, it won't fire. But I can tell you for a fact, I got 2 1911s and know exactly how they work. I got thousands of rounds through them. And the only time a 1911 goes bang is when you have the safety off and you squeeze the grip safety and you pulled the trigger. It's going off. That's why he basically got himself a 45 caliber tunnel along the outside of his leg that spit out beside his knee. He got really lucky on that one. But no, I would say that Kentucky Ballistics did not go full Grebner. He basically grabbed some I really want to cuss here, but he grabbed some crap ammo that bit him in the wrongest way possible. And anything that anybody could have done in the gun industry to build a safe enough firearm, probably something was going to give. If it was not going to be the gun, it was going to be the cartridge. If it wasn't going to be the cartridge, it was going to be a release of secondary gas jetting out the safety ports in some glorious fashion where it probably looked like he was firing a giant muzzle loader and got a muzzle flash out the front and a muzzle flash out the back. And I've seen people do stuff like that. And usually what it is, it's a bolt gun that is so overcharged that something lets go. To my mind, I would say that Ballistics got exceedingly lucky. And that whole thing about sticking his thumb in to stop an arterial bleed, that's presence of mind most people just don't have. And he got very, very lucky that he was attended by other people at the range and could transport him instantly to a really bad situation to get help really fast. He got very, very lucky in that regard. And the mere fact that he, one, didn't lose an eye, doesn't have like massive facial damage after the fact, doesn't have massive nerve damage after the fact, two, doesn't have like massive throat damage. Because, you can ask anybody in the business, the worst place for the human body to take any kind of injury is the neck. There's all kinds of vital things there. There's not a lot of space for things to go wrong. As a matter of fact, if you slash somebody on the cheek, you're cutting a major artery, because that's where, when your major artery runs, oh yeah, like it's like major arterial bleed with only 4 millimeters of skin. Okay. So he got really, really, really lucky that he had the presence of mind to plug a thumb in there and stop the bleed. Let me look back in the room again. Be my luck getting around like that. Try my shotgun. Oh, the best of luck. Randall Hill. Oh man. Yes. 5 shots. I've seen that. They refer to it as the sentry gun. Now, literally all it is pretty much, it's just an overeducated mousetrap. I mean, people have been building those forever. You take a mousetrap, you weld or you solder a nail onto the bail, and you make sure it hits the primer on a 12 gauge. Well, you take the 12 gauge shell, you take out the shot, and basically pop off the wad. Yeah, in a section of water pipe, it's going to be hella loud. That's just how that one works. Yes, 5 shots. He said his dad saved him. I think that's where the video said. Yes. So presence of mind on all persons involved. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Mark Serbu to me is like, gun engineer, gun nut. I mean, obviously the guy is 999 kinds of cool. I've messaged him on YouTube. He got back to me almost immediately. He's just an exceedingly awesome dude. And the next time I go down to Florida, yes, I will visit Mark Serbu and Serbu Firearms, and I will have absolutely no issue whatsoever with firing any of his stuff, because he is that kind of a guy that goes, yeah, I'm going to build safety factor in there because I don't get my rocks off watching other people get hurt. I mean, he even said that in his own video, trying to describe what happened third person after the fact. And yes, he did have the components of the firearm that had failed, and he was eyeballing it. And he's like, there's no amount of threads I could have put on that thing that would have kept it together. He goes, the safety margin I build into these things was so overwhelmed by just whatever that cartridge was. He's like, I got no idea what they loaded into that thing in terms of powder charge, but the sheer pressure level just would have separated just about anything. The metal itself had failure points, not the threads. The metal itself had failure points. And that's stuff that you don't get unless you really got something going wrong. What's wrong, Milo? Are you looking for your tunnel? He's okay. I'll be nice to the Milo. Hi, Milo. Yes, you want your tunnel? He's actually been good today, so I'll give him back his tunnel. He gets naughty, I take away his tunnel. You're nice. You're nice. You're not being crazy. You're not harassing other kitties. He'll be inside that thing in about a second. He literally runs back and forth through it. Anyway, so yeah, I would tend to think all parties involved. Kentucky Ballistics got really, really, really lucky. Mark Serbu builds a quality firearm. I have heard, and this is like, looking around like tons of places. I mean, I'm a member of AR15.com. I've been around the gun industry guys on all forums ever since about 1999, 2000. So I've been in the community for a very long time online. I have never, ever heard anybody say that Mark Serbu's stuff has major failure points. It's badly executed, and he builds junk. Now, I have never heard anybody state that. I've always heard of the highest rapport for his firearm designs, his executions, and just his stuff works. I mean, if you look at that, the one guy, I forget his name, begins with an S. He always does the 50 caliber shoots. He's shooting one of Serbu's semi-auto 50s, and that's exclusively what he shoots. He's never had a problem with it. I've never seen a jam, and he shoots all kinds of really exotic ammo through the 50 BMG. Oh, let's shoot the Sarkissian. That's what it is. That guy's name's Sarkissian. And he shoots literally everything possible, 50 BMG, through, I think it's the BFA, the big freaking automatic that Mark Serbu makes. And he's shot that thing scads of times, countless videos, and he's never had an issue with it. I've heard millions of, well, maybe not millions, but I've heard, okay, subjectively, I've heard millions of people saying, the beloved Serbu Super Shorty, the little 3-shot 12-gauge guy that he makes and 20-gauge guy he makes. Everybody loves those things. It's been in tons of movies. His stuff is just that good. It's quality items, and nobody has ever said that he builds junk. I would just tend to think it was the worst possible occasion of wrong ammo, wrong time, wrong guy, just wrong everything. Not failure of gun handling and not failure of the person firing the firearm. Just bad ammo, which has been a thing that I have heard previously. As a matter of fact, one of my older videos, there was an ammo manufacturer, and I took him to task, and I really I ripped him a new one. It's like, how dare you guys basically blame the guy that shot your stuff? You blew up his stuff, and then you say, well, that's just your gun's a piece of crap. Never mind the fact the guy's stuff was headspace correctly, had been gunsmith, eyeballed. There was no issues with it whatsoever, and the gun was the point of failure. No, it was the ammo, because that wasn't the only complaint I'd heard about. I looked around on the internet, and there was other people that had suffered the bad business practices of these guys either second selling surplus crap or making their own, which was with specious components, and the ammo would fail with regularity or just didn't work right. Now, there's a few things that you always truly have to worry about with surplus ammo. This is all over the place. You can find this out from anybody. And I've actually experienced this myself. Old ammo is sometimes not the most reliable ammo. It is at best practice ammo. It is at best range ammo. And it's something that you really want to have, a range rod around so you could bump out projectiles when you have squibs, or you want to have ability to extract broken cases, because when, you fire it and it's like the case separates, stupid stuff like that will always trip you up at the range. Now, my beloved and my only 9mm pistol is my CZ75. Now, if you guys know anything about the way the Czechs build stuff, the Czechs build firearms for one ammunition in combat. So their 9mm ammo is hot. And I do mean like sub-gun ammo hot. You shoot it out of like a 4 or 5 inch 9mm, you're getting like sub 357 ballistics. It is smoking hot. 124 grain bullets just boogieing down the block. And it's built like that. So if you look at a CZ75, it is a steel frame with a steel slide, a steel barrel, steel on steel on steel on steel on steel on steel. You close the slide on that, and it closes like a bank vault because it's rock solid. Now, there was an occasion I got a hold of some British World War II subgun ammo. And I did a little bit of research, and I found out this stuff is like smoking. And I do mean like absolutely smoking hot ammo. Druthers, it is a very, very, very hard primer because it's intended to be used in an open bolt machine gun. Read like the Stens and the Lanchesters and, all these things that have like these big, massive blocks of steel just going, and that's your firing action. The firing pin is fixated on it, and it just takes the shell, slams it into the chamber, blasts the primer, boots it loose. And everything is violent because it has to be in a subgun machine gun in World War II because you're enduring all kinds of nasty stuff. Now, of that, they said, okay, if we're going to be rocking and rolling all this heavy gear around and we're going to be moving all this mass and momentum and everything, it needs to be smoking hot. So it's a 124 grain projectile, and it's just blisteringly hot ammo. I mean, it's stuff that you shoot in like alloy framed or, not well constructed polymer framed weapons. You're going to beat them to death. I mean, it's literally in about 2 magazines, things are going to start rattling around, and if it even still works. It is plus P plus, and you might want to add a small P after that. So it's hot. I'll put it in perspective. My friend had a piece of I-beam on a table. I was about 30, 40 feet away max, and I'm pecking away with it 9mm, and it's just going ding, 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 maybe moving a little bit. 3 rounds of this subgun ammo, and I knocked the damn thing off the table. It was just bling, bling, bonk, down. But of that, some of the rounds I had second strike. And that's one of the nice things about having a weapon system that's single and double action is if it doesn't go off, you basically just, double action it a few times. If it doesn't go off, that round's a dud. But some of the ammo was like bang, tink, 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 bang, bang, tink, 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 bang. It was not exactly perfectly reliable, but when it fired, man, it was on par with a 357 in terms of recoil. Not ridiculously abusive or anything, and the gun wasn't beat up because the CZ75s are built for really, really hot subgun ammo because the Czechs put one ammo out in the field. They know it's going to be really, really hard to say, okay, hey, hang on a second, guys. Here's the subgun ammo, and here's the handgun ammo. This is all the handgun ammo we have. So when you run out of that, don't shoot the subgun ammo because the gun's not built for it. So in their infinite wisdom, they said, we'll just build it so it just shoots anything we feed at it. And that's just a very good way of thinking. Now, the major problem is you get some guy that goes, well, I got this pistol. It's marginal, but it should be fine. I'll just load it up with this stuff and I'll be rocking and rolling, and it's going to be a good time, and nobody's going to have a single problem. And the gun is just not happy afterwards. So anyway, the biggest problem you have is those guys trying to play with that stuff, and they're like, hey, it's perfectly capable. I'll just take it out to the field and give it a try, and that's also known in the business as a kaboom. So anyway, most cases you would have a situation like that. You would simply just say, okay, well, I put the wrong ammo in the wrong gun. It was too hot, and it was not for it. Like, classically, there is Smith & Wesson revolvers. They'll tell you these are capable with modern ammunition to, higher pressures, or they're going to say stick with standard loads. And the biggest problem is this is the reason why there's a 38 and a 357 and a 44 special and a 44 Magnum. It's so you can't do the problem that they used to have back in the 1930s when they came up with the Smith & Wesson triple lock 3844, which was the forerunner of the 357, and you stick a 357 level power level loaded in a 38 special case in some old 38 black powder gun where it goes in the chamber, you squeeze off around and it takes the top 3 cylinders and the top strap off. That's the biggest problem that you have with some stuff, is it's backwards compatible, but it should never, ever be fired like that. Logan Ray, appreciate you coming by, brother. So looking at things as it is, I would can't talk today. I would tend to think that this Kentucky ballistics, I wouldn't even say debacle. I would just simply say I would love, in my heart of hearts, I would love to know who sourced him the ammo. And I would make sure that person knew in no uncertain terms, take these things, pull them down, dump out the powder, sell it as components. Do not sell the assembled ammunition to anybody, or you're going to kill somebody. Somebody's going to put that in a weapon system that is not going to be nearly as capable as Mark Serbu's, was it RN50, I think it is, and you're going to kill somebody because the round is going to take the gun apart, and they're going to get spalled, and they're going to get very, very messed up. And that's the thing with the 52 is it's not like there's too much margin for error, but when things go wrong, they go really wrong. Excuse me 1 second here. When a 50 BMG breaks a Ma Deuce, where you the M2 machine gun, 90-pound plus monster that the military's used for over 100 years now, when one of those comes apart, you have two occasions. Either you're the guy that's behind the thing working the spades, classic old school machine gun, or it's on top of the gun, it's on top of the weapon system mount on top of an armored vehicle or a Humvee or something along those lines, and you're usually wearing armor. You're usually wearing a helmet. Usually you got eye protection. But the biggest problem is when one of those things fails, the bolt is about the size of like a Coke can, and it's coming out the back of the machine gun, and it's coming into you. And there's stories about that, where people have set the weapon system up the wrong way. Now, that's one of the nice things about, the newest iteration of the M2 is it's not so sensitive to headspace. It's not so sensitive to timing. It's much more troop friendly. Now, if you look this up, anybody can do this. You go on the internet and you look up 50 BMG headspace timing gauge. And you look at this thing and it's on a piece of chain and it has the stamping on it. It's a military tool. What you do is you pop the top cover off of an M2 machine gun. You stick this tool down there and you adjust a knob until the barrel closes just right. And then there's another thing that you adjust to adjust the time that the bolt goes forward, hits a certain point, fires the cartridge, and it's safe. If it goes not enough and fires, it's not fully locked up. It's going to blow the bolt right back through the back cover, and it's going to blow it into your crotch or into your chest or into your face. And like I said, it's a Coke can sized piece of steel, and it is not going to be a good day for you. I've heard stories of people that had a 50 basically do that to them, and I do mean Modus. And when it did do it, it shot the bolt through their pelvis and went beyond them and bounced off a truck. Now, the guy that did it was just like, don't. He's like, what the hell? And it's like, he didn't even know that he was badly injured until he tried to turn around and take a step and fell over. Of course, he's spurting blood because the bolt had also cut his femoral artery in half. Medic goes running over there real fast, jams his hand in the wound, basically, grabs a hold of the blood vessels, and he's like hanging on for dear life, trying to keep this guy alive, because if he lets go, he's going to bleed out in about 30 freaking seconds. It's like a garden hose. So anyway, this guy survived. Obviously, I think his military career was pretty much done at that point because it shattered his pelvis. And he healed up. I think he obviously got a medical retirement. But that's the kind of stuff that can really, 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 really go wrong. And usually, most times when something firearms related goes bad, you got no reaction time. It's just an explosion right in front of you. And there's tons of videos on YouTube where you see somebody shooting a black powder gun and it just balloons like, an Elmer Fudd firearm, or they shoot a shotgun and it just comes to pieces and they're like, picking splinters out of their hands from all the, the wood stock that exploded. There's tons of videos like that. And it's usually almost always a case where somebody does something wrong and everything else behind it is the line of travel to simply say, you screwed up. But in this case, I think Kentucky Ballistics, I think he actually was a victim of bad ammunition. And I would think that the unscrupulous person that sold him that crap probably is going to be very, very concerned right about now. If it was me and he did that stuff to me, that guy would be in court yesterday. It's like, dude, you almost freaking killed me with your crap. I would tend to think in pretty much any way of looking at it, if you're selling something like that knowledgeably, you are premeditated, almost killing people. That's not good juju. Let's see. Looking in the room. Nothing else new. Okay. So pretty much I just want to kind of do a catch up. I wasn't really intended to do like a podcast per se, but I did want to catch up with you guys and kind of give you like, a something, because I haven't done a video in so long. And it seems like the live videos seem to get more merit. It's way less production. Well, okay, obviously it's way less production. I just kind of go plug in the microphone, plug in the camera, turn on enough lights, and that's it. Of course, sound guy is chomping at the bit to put in sound effects that I'm not giving him opportunity for. So it's a little quieter than the podcast right now. So anyway, look at this things as it usually is. I do have my podcast on Tuesday. I usually don't do a weekly update video. I could. I mean, that'd be kind of one of those fun things I probably could do. But it's also the case of when am I home alone and I'm not like completely distracted by all the other stuff going on around me, cats bouncing off the walls, people bouncing off the walls, tons of distractions. Because, in my heart of hearts, obviously I'm married and, I have my niece living with me and all, but I'm kind of more of a loner than anything. I'm really not too terribly discontent to be by myself. There's a lot of times where, my mind is allowed to function more without just a whole bunch of outside distractions and people asking me questions and just things going on. I'm not saying I'm a hermit, but, there's a lot of times where truly I don't mind my alone time, and it can sometimes be quite scarce. So an opportunity like this to just fire up the camera and just, riff, it's not a bad thing. So anyway, coming up on 50 time, and I don't want to make this thing a full hour. I mean, I could, but, obviously I don't want to keep you guys tied up for too terribly long because, obviously you got stuff to do. Yeah, right. I enjoy my alone time. Yeah. Well, it depends on how many brews that you have basically being popped in front of you too, right? I'm running tonight, so obviously I can't imbibe in anything. So I'm keeping it clean with merely just aqua pura. Carries entertainment. I think everyone does. Yes, indeed. So slight channel update, hopefully, and me kind of riffing on just things in general. it looks like Kentucky Ballistics has pretty much bounced back. I mean, I was amazed to see, what his, if nothing else, what his face looked like, because supposedly, they did like a cut above his eye, a cut below his eye, and did reconstructive surgery because his orbit was just blown out. Man, he really ducked, literally ducked a bullet on that one, because when you start talking like shattering like orbits and cheekbones and all kinds of facial stuff, things go really, really wrong very, very quickly, because you got to remember the orbits in the back of your eye are only about as thick as an eggshell. Okay. That's why, most of the time you see boxers boxing, they want to take the hits on their forehead. They don't want to take it in the eyes if they can avoid it. It's just not a good thing. All right. So on this one, folks, I'm going to break up this one. Appreciate your kind attention. You guys hanging out with me tonight. And do be sure to check me out on Tuesday, 9 p.m. I usually start 8:55. Technically, I start 8:55 just to make sure everything is working. But technically, it's 9 o'clock p.m. on a Tuesday. So I catch you guys the next time on Dude After Dark. And I'm going to roll out on this one. Eat good, keep tendering as always. You know you love it. And I appreciate your kind attention. So I'm going to break up on this one and then see you guys later. Have a good weekend. See ya.